Hello and welcome to Patterns Lesson 1. Today we're going to be having a look at patterns that we can find within the environment, and we're also going to be having a look at growing patterns and how we can describe how a pattern is growing, how a pattern is changing. There are a couple of things that you're going to need for today's lesson. For today's lesson, you're going to need 2 coloured pencils or markers, a lead pencil, and some blank paper, or maybe you might have a blank scrapbook page from one of the scrapbooks you've picked up from school. So I'd like you to pause the video now and go and collect those items. Today we're having a look at what patterns we can see within environments. So I'm going to be showing you a couple of pictures now, and we're going to be deciding what patterns we can see in these pictures. In our first picture, I can notice that there is a pattern happening on the fence. Can you see this pattern too? Yeah, that's right. I can see the pattern that is happening right there on the fence palings. It's going fence paling, no fence paling, fence paling, no fence paling. It's a repeated pattern there. Look what other patterns we can see. Oh, let's look at the pattern that we can see on the peacock. Can you see a pattern on the outside of the peacock's feathers? I'm going to give you a moment to have a look at that peacock. That's right, I can see the pattern as well on the peacock's feathers. The peacock has a pattern inside its feathers. The peacock also has a pattern along its feathers. There are other patterns on the peacock as well. I wonder if you can talk to somebody at home. Maybe you might be just telling yourself. Maybe you might be telling mum or dad if they're nearby, or brother or sister. I wonder if you can tell somebody about the patterns that you can see in these pictures. Oh, here's another picture. This time we've got a zebra. Let's have a little look at the zebra and what patterns we can see on the zebra. This time we've got a coloured pattern. Can you see the colours that the zebra has on him? That's right, he has black and white stripes. It goes black stripe, white stripe. Here's another pattern. This one's in the environment as well. I wonder how this pattern has been made. Have a look at this pattern that you can see in the sand. That's right, I can see that line pattern as well. All the way in the sand. Maybe this pattern was made with the wind blowing. Maybe this pattern was made with some ripples of water. Our next pattern is in a honeycomb inside a beehive. Can you see the shapes in this pattern? Wonder how many sides those shapes have. Can you count them? Can you see the pattern that is repeating inside the honeycomb? Can you see the pattern that is repeating on the bees' backs? Our last pattern in the environment today is the pattern in this flower. Inside the flower there's a pattern, and on the leaves there are patterns. We can find patterns all around us, but we also use patterns when we are talking about maths. Today we're going to be having a look at some patterns in colours and shapes, and then we're going to be having a look at some patterns that we can see in numbers. Have a look at this pattern here. There's 3 different patterns. The first pattern is using 2 different shapes, squares and circles. It's also using 2 different colours, green and blue. This is a repeating pattern because the colours are repeated over and over. It goes green, then blue, green, blue, green and blue. The next pattern is using two shapes again, triangles and rectangles. Can you say this pattern with me? Triangle, rectangle, triangle, rectangle, triangle, rectangle. Can you have a look at the pattern that's below? Let's have a look at the colours in this pattern instead of the shapes. We've got purple, and what's that other colour there? That's right, it's yellow. Let's say this pattern together. Purple, yellow, purple, yellow, purple, yellow. The colours are repeated over and over again. We call this a repeating pattern. What's it called again? That's right, a repeating pattern. Let's have a look at this pattern. In this pattern, we have two different colours, blue and green. We also have two different shapes, squares and circles. The pattern is repeating. The colour and shapes are repeating in this pattern. The pattern includes the colour green and the colour blue. It also includes the square shape and a circle shape. How can we explain this repeating pattern? We can explain this repeating pattern using letters to represent each of the colours or each of the shapes. So every time I see the colour green or the shape square, I'm going to use the letter A to describe that shape or colour. Every time I see the colour blue or the shape of a circle, I'm going to record that colour or that shape as the letter B. So far we have got A, B. Oh, I see that square again or that colour green. So I need to write the letter A. A, B, A. That's right, it's a B, it's a circle. Let's see if we can use the pattern that we've created with our letters to guess which one is going to come next. A, B, A, B, A, and the circle at the end is going to be the letter B. So if we were to explain this pattern to somebody, rather than saying it's a green, blue, green, blue, green, blue pattern, we can say that it is a repeating pattern of AB, AB, AB. It's an AB repeating pattern.
This time we're going to be creating a pattern using two different coloured markers. You should have had these markers from right at the beginning where you had the list of what you needed to collect. So I've chosen to collect an orange and a blue marker to create this pattern. I've also got my white piece of paper in front of me, and I'm using a black marker because I couldn't find a lead pencil, but you can use your lead pencil. If you have a marker, you could use that as well. We're going to be creating a pattern now, and this pattern is going to be a colour and a shape pattern. We're going to be creating the pattern in front of us, and after we've created that pattern, we're going to be thinking of ways that we can explain that pattern using letters. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be choosing my colour blue, and I'm going to be putting my colour blue as a circle today. So when I'm drawing a circle, I'm going to make it blue. I'm going to get my orange next, and with my orange I'm going to be drawing a square. So far I have a circle, a square. Ooh, I'm going to do another square this time. circle, square, square. Now I'm going to start back at the start again of my pattern. I'm going to get my blue and I'm going to draw another circle. Colour him in. So I have a circle, a square, a square, a circle. I wonder what's going to come next. I can see a circle here, and I know after a circle there was a square. So I think I'm going to be drawing, or I know I'm going to be drawing, a square next. Circle, square, square, circle, square. That's right, another square here. Okay, so I have a circle, a square, a square, a circle, a square, and a square. That's one way that I can explain my pattern. But if I wanted to explain my pattern in another way, I can use letters to represent each colour or each shape in this pattern. So when I have a blue in this pattern, I'm going to use the letter A to represent my blue or my circle. Every time I see an orange or a square, I'm going to use the letter B to represent that colour or shape. So far I have an AB. I have another square or orange, so I need to put another B. ABB. It's a blue again, or a circle. It's another A. And then I have two oranges. So they're going to both be Bs. So if I was explaining this pattern, I could explain this pattern as a circle, square, square, circle, square, square pattern. Or I could explain it as blue, orange, orange, blue, orange, orange. It's a changing pattern each time, or it's a repeating pattern as it's going, but it does change a little bit in there. Or I could represent it as an ABB, ABB pattern. So if I was to write underneath the continuing of this pattern, if I was to write my pattern ABB, ABB, I know that my pattern goes ABB, ABB. Now that I've written my letters, I can remember, use my information at the top, to remind me what each letter represents. That's right, the letter A was made using blue or a circle. And I could keep going and know that my B's means that there is orange square. It's another way that I can explain this pattern. Next up, I'm going to ask you to have a go at creating your own pattern using your two colours. So I'd like you to get your two colours out now, and I'd like you to use your white piece of paper or your scrapbook and create your own pattern. You might create an ABB pattern like me, or you might create an ABAB pattern like we saw before. You might create an ABC pattern using 3 different shapes like a circle, a square, and a triangle. Circle, square, triangle. A, B, C, A, B, C. It's repeating 3 different shapes this time. I'd like you to create your pattern and write underneath the letters that you could use to explain what your pattern is. When you're finished, I wonder if you can send a message on Class Dojo to your teacher showing them your pattern.
Press pause now on this video to create your pattern. Let's have a look at this hundreds chart. I can notice a few different things on this hundreds chart. I can see that the numbers get bigger as the 100 chart goes along. The hundreds chart starts at the number 1 and it increases by 1 more each time we jump a square. The number chart finishes at the number 100. Can you start at the number 1 and count all the way up to the number 30 with me? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Well done. Next, we're going to be having a look at a growing pattern. A growing pattern increases in numbers every time there is a new line in the pattern. Let's have a look at how many counters we have to start with. Let's count them. 1, 2. We have 2 yellow counters. Let's increase this pattern by 2 more. 2. Oh, how many is in this pattern? We've added 2 more counters. 1, 2, 3, 4. This pattern is getting bigger, or this pattern is growing. I want to add 2 again. How many are we going to have now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So far we have 2, 4, 6. How many are we going to have at the end? 2 more makes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If I were to write the numbers beside this growing pattern, it would look like this. 2, 4, 6, and 8. Let's count that again. 2, 4, 6, 8. We can call this growing pattern a +2 pattern or a counting in 2 pattern. Now we're going to have a look at that pattern again. And we're going to have a look at that pattern and see if we can record that pattern on a hundreds chart. We started with the number 2. So I'm going to be using my highlighter now to highlight the number 2 on this hundreds board. Next, the pattern went 4, then 6, then 8. Have a look on this hundreds chart. Have a look at how many jumps we are making each time. When we started at the number 2, we jumped 1, 2 spaces. We counted in 2s. From 4, we added 2 more. Let's jump together. 1, 2. Let's see if we can keep going with this number pattern. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. Well done. Can you notice the pattern on the hundreds chart? It goes 1, 2 highlighted, 3, 4 highlighted, 5, 6 highlighted. We are highlighting every second number. All of these numbers end in a 2, a 4, a 6, an 8, or a 0. All of these numbers are even numbers. Today you're going to be doing a little activity where you're having a look at some growing patterns. In this activity, you're going to be drawing the next growing pattern in each of the pictures. In the first activity, you can see that you have 2 squares. Underneath in the box, I'd like you to write the number 2. Oh, this is a growing by 2 pattern. It goes 2 squares. How many's next? You count the amount of squares and write the number underneath. Then I'd like you to have a look at the next lot of squares. Oh, there's 2 more again. Once again, you need to count how many squares and write them underneath. Think about how many squares are getting added on each time. That's right, there's 2 each time. So in the next box, where it's blank, we need to draw the 8 squares that were already there and draw 2 more squares. In the last box, we need to draw the same shape as we just drew and add 2 more squares and write the numbers underneath in the white spaces. The activity underneath, it doesn't start at number 2 this time, it starts at the number 1. After the number 1, we have the number 3. How many more squares are there jumping from 1 to 3? Let's start with 1 and let's count up to number 3. 1, 2, 3. How many more did we add on? That's right, we added 2 more. The number 1 and the number 3, they're not even. Oh, that's right, they're odd numbers. Let's start at the number 3 and let's count on. Let's see how many more we need to get to get to 5. 3, 4, 5. Oh, it's a jumping in 2 pattern or a +2 pattern, but this time we're not starting at the number 2, we're starting at the number 1. I'd like you to complete that counting pattern as well in your activity today. The last pattern is in a growing pattern. This time I can see the pattern is getting smaller. This is a little bit of a challenge for you. I wonder if you can work out how much smaller it is getting each time. Write the numbers underneath and finish off the last 2 spots on our pattern. Good luck, and I can't wait to see your work sent through on Class Dojo. Have fun!